Hello and welcome to Perspectives. I'm your host, Rondrick Williamson. On last week's episode, we began a series on youth violence. On this episode, we're going to continue with that. This is part 2. If you read the headlines almost on a daily basis, there's issues with youth violence. The rise of crime, not only in the Middle Georgia area, but across America, is steadily increasing. We want you to stay with us as we're going to go deeper and deeper into our panel of guests and get to the bottom of this issue. We'll be right back. The mayor also says that he wants to meet regularly with Bibb County School Superintendent Ramon Dolomar about reaching children in schools. So how can we do that? Is it a way to be proactive and have programs that are preventative, that will teach children at this age about, we talk about conflict resolution. So when they get into a situation, we're not spinning our wheels, we're not backtracking. Is that something that can be instituted in the school system, maybe part of the curriculum, that will teach these kids how to deal with conflict? They don't necessarily have to get angry and ball up their fist, that there's other ways to deal with conflict. Anybody's open to answer?
As you know, Dr. Dolomar has went on a Herculean task of a strategic plan, which is just unique, the strategy in which he's using. There's going to be some things unfolding in the future where we're going to look at district-wide delivery systems that research-based, because we look at something called meta-analysis. We like to look at a lot of research that has been synthesized and know that it worked. I could talk about a lot of glorious programs out there. I'll give you an example, a program that's anti-bullying called OVEAS. It is research-based and nationally proven as a preventive intervention. Where do we start these at? At the most earliest age. But I would even suggest these things. We can talk about interventions. It has to be a change in intrinsic values. Those things that I hold dear, that I was taught. I served 26 years in the Army, Special Forces, and I'm telling you, integrity, honesty. Our kids should be looking at the law enforcement people in our community and saying, I'm glad that there's a police officer over there. I've mentored over 400 young men and women in my lifetime. And I'm telling you right now, you have to change their social values so when they see a police officer walking down, it is not looking behind my shoulder, wondering if he's going to do something, he or she does something to me, and that starts at the most earliest age. And it's very easy to influence people. I simply hold up a white piece of paper and I tell people, what color is this paper? They said white. And I tell them that 3 times, what color is this paper? And they say white. Well, what color is the milk that cows drink? They say white. I said, cows don't drink milk. So if I'm able to put those thoughts in your mind with spontaneity, if I scope and sequence a number of activities from pre-K through post, where do you think we'll have kids going? Right. Doctors, lawyers, president, anything we want to shape them in. But we've got to believe that, and you've got to passionately believe that, and wrap your arms around your children and your community.
But the problem we're seeing, if this is taught in the school system, and from whatever the normal school day is, but it's not reinforced at home, then there's some type of disconnect. If the parents aren't reinforcing it, I wouldn't say it's totally the teacher's responsibility to raise these children.
They're not supposed to raise them.
Exactly.
They're supposed to be raised in their home, educated in the school. They're not supposed to raise them. However, they should have some influence on the child. You agree?
I agree. Okay. Now, the mayor also wants to create a mayor's youth advisory council to address problems in the city. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, the mayor would probably have to tell you more about that, but I'm sure he's want to draw young people from every sector, a diverse group, to come together, and talk about some of the problems that they are dealing with, some of the issues that they see in Macon that they would like to see the administration address. So I think it'll be something along those lines, and I'm sure that if they present those to him, that he'll do everything he can to bring about positive change.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Let's give our panel a
Furnish 123 is a new way to shop and buy furniture. Did you know that for only $3.99 you can get a sofa, dining set, or bedroom set? Reclining sofas are only $5.99 and sectionals just $7.99.
Any pair of lamps, a 5x7 rug, or accessory pack for $99. A 3-piece table set for only $199. Queen mattress sets for only $2.99.
It's that simple. Furnish 123. Furniture buying as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Now open inside Mobley Furniture Outlet, Perry.
Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. I hope you didn't miss our first segment. Boy, did we have a good time. But now we're back with our second segment. We have a couple new guests to the panel. Ms. Paula Sims, who's our resident licensed professional counselor. Let's give her a hand. To my left, we also have rap artist Sonny Spoon. Let's give him a hand. And sitting right here in the front of the audience, we have Deshaun Morris, who was instrumental in starting the Bloods in New Jersey. Let's give him a hand as well. So in our last segment, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about causes of violence. So now let's regroup. Let's talk about some solutions on how we can stop violence. And the first question I want to say, is it possible to increase after-school programs in at-risk areas? That's why we wanted you still on the panel. We don't want you to go anywhere.
All things are possible. And as you may have known, we've just received a $2.8 million Gear Up grant for the next 7 years. Mm-hmm. That grant will be $2.8 million with our community partners. And you'll find that later on some of the components of that will allow us to create those after-school programs. Now, there has not been a rollout of that strategically yet, but we're looking at all possibilities of the grant. Now, the Community and Schools program is one of our sponsorship. It also has that component in there to extend learning after school. And particularly, we have to look at those areas that we think that are at risk most. Mm-hmm. So when we look at our entire district, in which we've broken down into 4 zones, we look at those sides of town where we know, based on the demography, based on the socioeconomical status of those communities, how do we better wrap our services around them? And that means that administrators and teachers have to know their kids, and they have to know their communities. Mm-hmm. If you're working in those communities, you should know those communities. You should not get in your vehicles and head down to highway and drive to these nice communities and wash your hands at the end of the day. If I'm a principal in a building, I know my families. I'm not afraid of my families, and I'm willing to stay and spend those late hours and help my families. And I'll pull in any resource that I have available to help those kids. So back to your original question, yes, we're looking at our whole entire 4 zones, and you're going to see some tremendous changes Dr. Delamont is going to be working at. I know we're on their compressed planning sequence. Mm-hmm. He plans to have this rolled out in January, but you're going to see some out-of-the-box thinking to help these students that are in those dire areas.
What if we were to do a sort of open dialogue with the students in the school to see what their view is about the crime in the communities? I was privileged this past week to be a panelist on for a Q&A for a new movie that just came out called The Interrupters, which looked at, over a year's period, looked at violence and gang violence in the city of Chicago. And one of the things that they instituted in the Chicago public school system is they have the kids sit down and draw what they feel violence is. Is that a good way to deal with that, you think? I think we need to get the children talking about it, and we really will find out that it's really interpersonal conflicts that's really going on, that's behind all of this. Does anyone want to comment on that? That might have been a real deep question. I don't know.
No, a lot of times when we arrest the people that we arrest that commit these crimes, it turns out that it is an interpersonal conflict. Mm-hmm. Very seldom is it, you have the gangs and you have the different neighborhoods that conflict with other neighborhoods, but at the root of that is going to be some personal conflict or some, it could be a female-male relationship, mm-hmm. some kind of situation like that. Sometimes it's even drug-related, but it does boil down to some personal conflict between 2 people or some groups of people. So, yeah, you're right. The personal conflict is what it all boils down mm-hmm. to. And then when you go into the domestic-type assaults and shootings, mm-hmm. that's in the house. That's obviously going to be a personal conflict
right.
there.
Mm-hmm. So, Deshaun, a question for you. Do you agree that most gang violence is just interpersonal issues. You wore a blue bandana as opposed to a red bandana. You crossed this line. It's not necessarily someone actually assaulted someone, but it's more of an interpersonal conflict. Would you like to comment on that?
Sure. I agree with that. When you talk about like interpersonal conflict, I mean, much of this was said earlier, so I won't repeat much of it, but a lot of it has to do with a lot of just what we've been, the way we've been living for numerous years. I'm 30 years old. I've been a blood for 20 years. And I remember at 16, 17, 18, the things that I learned when I was 9 and 10, when I moved to the West, I still was living like that. And those are things I've seen on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of that has to do with just ultimately what we've seen consistently over and over and over and over, and you feel that these are the ways we have to deal with it. 17, 18, most of my life, there was a lot of things I did that personally I didn't want to do. But you condition to respond to certain things a certain way. And ultimately when those situations occur or happen before us, we are pretty much trained to deal with them in a certain manner. So a lot of it has to do with that interpersonal, I call them demons, things that are not worked out with us, frustration, sadness, misery, all of that combined in one type of person, and there's not many outlets to get those things out. There's not enough people out there really on a one-on-one basis with these youngsters. We talked about all these rules and policies and things that's being made, but you got to get out there with those youngsters that's out there making it happen and hear from them what's the problem. You got to get out there with those youngsters that's out there pulling those triggers, okay, and get to the bottom of what's making them unhappy about things and stop, you know, being so quick to make the laws that reflect them, but get the pain that's actually coming from them. That's these youngsters out here.
Right. So do you believe that? Great comment.
And that's the reason you have to start in the grammar schools. Mm-hmm. You heard what he just said, how long he's been involved in that kind of stuff. You have to start when the children are young, like this, and tell them a gun is not the way to solve a conflict. You have to start like this. If you wait till they get like this, it's too late.
Well, and he's right. You got to start early. The sheriff's office about 2 years ago started a program. We have a junior deputy program, which is similar to DARE, that goes and sees the kids in the 6th grade. Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids, by the time they're in 5th grade, 6th grade, it's too late. They're already starting on the path. You can start trying to redirect them. They start on the path. But we're starting to go into the daycare centers, mm-hmm. 3, 4, 5 years old, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. That positive role model, what we were talking about before, a law enforcement officer coming in, developing a positive role model, reading to these kids, being accessible to show the police are not here to arrest you every time. We're here to help you. Mm-hmm. And it has made a difference. The deputies that go in and do the daycare center program, they see them out at the mall. They see them on the street. They'll run up to that deputy, introduce the deputy to the mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So it is making a difference. I just wish we had about 50 more officers that we could put in the daycare centers. Right. So in that, it shows that it works. On that scale, we know it works. Right. We just need to do more of it and get the community involved to do more of it.
So, Deshaun, so how important would it have been for individuals to come into the community to mentor you when you were growing up, as opposed to you being stuck in that one environment? And often when I mentor youth, I tell them that where you are does not necessarily mean you have to stay there. And where you are is not an indication on where you can go. So can you expound on that for me?
Sure. Well, at 30, I now see the value of mentors opposed to when I was 16. Mm-hmm. At those ages, those mentors didn't exist where I was from. Now I'm adamant about mentors, but the point that I would like to make about mentors is that these mentors, and I won't say in a general sense, but a lot of them got to be able to still speak that language. Because that's the disconnect we talk about. I see it all the time. I see these guys come in, they sit down with a bunch of youngsters, and nothing he's talking about reflect what they living out there. Right. So you done lost that youngster before you open your mouth. So I think it's got to be a combination with those that, like myself, you know, what I do, I'm from, you know, the work that I do, but then those that may not necessarily be from those streets that have the resources and experience outside of the streets. And when you combine those, then that's when, you know what I'm saying, you got a youngster, you got him in your grasp, but now you can learn them. But when that information is coming from somebody who never been in that project hallway, mm-hmm. don't even know what it smell like in there, right. The homie not trying to hear nothing he's trying to say. So those mentors need to be, we need to encourage those type of mentors that actually come from that, the gutter, that's now on a different page to come back and talk to these knuckleheads.
Right. So, Paula, how important is that? At the Q&A I was a part of on Friday evening, a young girl stood up. I think she was 14 or 15 years old. She said, all I know how to do is fight.
Right.
And she said, I fight. And she said, I get disgusted when people come to my class and talk to me about living in public housing, being on public assistance, when they've never experienced that for themselves.
Right.
And so she said it's much, much more effective for someone who's been there, just like Deshaun said, to come and speak to us as opposed to someone who is just talking to us from whatever. So would you like to explain on that?
I agree with that, but I also think that compassion, when you meet and you connect and you show that the problem at hand is what you're really interested in. I've not walked in your shoes, but I can empathize in what you've gone through. And as a community member, it is my duty to do whatever that's within my power to help you. I think that's also another option, an approach that children would also be open to allow people to help them as well.
Right. So, Sonny, we have you on the panel today, and I know you've experienced some situations in your life with being incarcerated for a period of time, and now you're out doing the Stop the Violence campaign, which I think is a wonderful idea. Let's give him a hand of applause. How important is it for you to do what you're doing?
Well, one, in this community, because these youngsters know me from both sides of the fence. They know that I came up and I was basically in their shoes. I did what they're doing, and they seen me go off to prison, a lot of them. And to come home, and the thing that this brother was saying, I want to piggyback on what he's saying. These kids may be committing crimes and doing other things, but they're very intelligent. So they can sense when someone is just coming talking down to them, and they really are not sincere about what they're doing. So that's why they will turn their backs and rather consult with their peers instead of listen to some mentor come in. And some of these organizations, I'm not gonna call any names, we need all of them, but they will not allow someone who has gone through a trial to come back and become a mentor or a person on their board. And who better to teach these kids than somebody that's been there?
That's great.
Because we have a story to tell them. Look, man, all this stuff y'all seeing on TV, guess what? At the end of the day, they yell cut and that person get to go home. But I didn't get to go home. I had to go do them 6 years.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And it's more real to them then when you can discuss it and they know, well, yeah, man, Sonny know what he's talking about. He been there. And it's not just me, it's others that are in the community, other leaders that I wish would step up, who've gotten older and don't see things the same way, but they're afraid of the repercussions that'll come from law enforcement because of what they've been doing.
Right.
you know.
But the youth need that connection. If there's not a connection there, then they're just going to tune you out if they don't feel that there's a connection there. Now, let's change gears a little bit. Now, we talked about the parents. What can we do to educate the parents? Is there something that we can do to get the parents more involved?
One of the things like you're doing right now, having forums, you know, to inform parents, they need to be aware of what their children are doing and that they are accountable for their children, especially if they live in a home. And sometimes, you know, some parents do the best they can and their children still get into things. But we still have to hold them accountable even more now than ever before because they seem to be, there's a disconnect between the parent and the child sometimes. But they're all human beings, and in law enforcement especially, we see them at their worst sometimes. But now, reality doesn't sit in on a lot of those young men until they stand before that judge and the sentence is passed. Now, then it all makes sense, but it's far too late. So even when we go out and arrest folk, we still have compassion because we realize that there's a human being that's probably got a whole lot of factors that have already been mentioned and some that may not have been mentioned, but they all factored into that person winding up in the situation that they wind up in. Not making excuses for them, but we got to hold people accountable. I still believe that if citizens carry out good citizenship, I mean, if you witness something around the police department, we say, if you see something, you need to say something. I know that sounds cliche, but that's the way it is.
But it's true.
If you witness something, to me, you are compelled, if it's something bad, to give testimony. I mean, we get folks shot, 50 people at a party. It was more than that. I'm just going to say 50. And so we come out and investigate, do our canvas. We get one statement. So these people are going to do what? They're going to shoot some more because they feel like they can get away. People do crime for the most part because they think they can get away with it. And so when we see these kind of things, we have to come forward. This is the most recent homicide. Everybody you go by in that neighborhood says such and such did it, but you know how many statements we got on paper so we can go out and arrest such and such?
Yeah, no one wants to say anything.
Not one.
Yeah.
Not one. And that's the reality of it. But we don't get frustrated by it. We just stay patient and keep working because that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But citizens, if there's something in your community that's illegal and that's causing problems, it needs to be reported. Whether you do it anonymously or you just call and say, hey, I'm sick of this, it needs to be dealt with because problems don't go away on their own.
Right. Now, Dr. Judy, do you think that there is a, let's give him a hand for that. Someone wants to talk. Do you think there is a disconnect between the parents and the teachers? I know the teachers are doing all they can do, but I've heard in some instances that the teachers are even afraid.
Well, of course, there's 3,800 employees in the district, and I can't, I think all of us come from different walks of life. And I would suggest to you that some probably are not from the same neighborhood. As I told you earlier, some get in their vehicles and they drive to where there's safe havens. And I just want to take this time and commend the two brothers here because we do need young men out there. Anybody that has did a 180-degree turnaround and are willing to go back into their community, those kids are going to listen to them.
We need to see more of
We're going to need to see more of them.
Right.
But this is a hard job in the schools. Schools are not like when I grew up many years ago, and we know that. They've changed. Kids are rewired today, and we need people that are not afraid in the system. So when you come into an urban school environment, I always say I have level 3 body armor on. So I am an old elephant tough and ready to hackle with anybody in there because that's the school districts I chose. Those rough neighborhoods. Where I came from, there's 52 different languages spoken, and everybody from Folk Nation to the Crips to Blood, all of them, strong and dominant. But I'm saying everybody's reachable if you build a relationship with them and they know that you're real, just like I just heard this brother say. You can't come down there speaking some foreign language.
Right.
You got to show people that you're sincere and honest. And I think many of our teachers are that. They are sincere and they chose the profession to help those children. But you got to be authentic in your relationships, and kids will sense if you're not authentic in those relationships. And that's why a lot of kids will move away because you're just running your lips constantly and not meaning what you say. And that means a sacrifice.
So I think to sum up this point that we were talking about is that we need more mentorship. So we need more mentorship in the school system. And so we need to implement programs to get more mentors in the school system.
And if I could just say one thing, and we don't need a response. How many people within our own African-American community, male and female, are mentoring a kid that they know right now? I can tell you we got 1,000 homeless kids right now in our school district. Who's willing to stand up and say, I am mentoring a kid? Who is willing to do that? Or are we so busy with our own personal lives, chasing the dollar, and stop working at and looking at our own community? That's an important thing. It's easy to point the finger at some. How many churches are in communities right now that don't even know the people that's around the corner? And I'm not down on churches. I'm a very religious person. But we got to stand up and step out of those safe havens and those comfortable zones, and we've got to save our children. Because if not, our community is going to be devastated in the future, and we're steadily seeing that right now. Dr. Delamont said only 44.6% of our kids are graduating. That's atrocious. I walk into class and I say, half of y'all ain't going nowhere. That's what I wells do. Don't even bother learning. Something's wrong with that. And those kids are going out in the street and they get hope getting inside someone that's telling them that I love you. And it may be a gang, it may be something else.
Right. And just to piggyback on that, talking about the churches and the community, some individuals from the community approached me prior to doing this event and said the thing that frustrates them the most is that the churches are more willing to do marches and rallies and make all of these claims of what we can do, but nothing is done. If you look back in November of last year, there was a march that had a host of churches involved. And I read the whole article, I read the itinerary, everything. But was anything done as a result of that? So I think the community is tired of a lot of rhetoric. And we want some really action.
I think you're using a broad brush painting the entire faith-based community. And it's inappropriate. You can't just say all the churches in this community. It's one thing Macon got plenty of. Churches, funeral homes, liquor stores, and car washes. Okay? All right? So you can't just say all the churches are not involved, because I can name 10 of them right off the bat. But you got to get the kid to the church. Okay?
And
There are
that's
churches that got programs for children and after-school program, but you got to get the child to the church.
Right, and that's one thing that Pastor Terry said. He said it's difficult when you want the child to come to church, but you can't get the parent to bring the child to church.
Right.
You know, in his church, he said there's programs designed to deal with these issues, but if the parent doesn't bring the child to church, no child, the program is just
right.
But what we've got in the habit of doing, though, is establishing these programs, not considering how the children will respond to them. So it's like we got this program, but they're not interested in that program.
Right.
Have they ever gone around and did a poll to see what these young people are interested in and have them come to programs that will be about them, for their betterment?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Hence,
like I made one real briefly. I made the suggestion on several different panels that there are a group of children from the age of 13 to 17 that have nothing to do after school. You have Stone Academy, and you have with Roger, he's doing a great job over there in, Fort Hill. But they're from 5 to 12. So you have these latchkey kids that are from 13 to about 17 that have nothing to do after school. And they laughed at it. Well, after school programs is not going to do anything to stop violence. Okay, well, if they don't have anything to do in a constructive environment, what does that leave them to do?
Right.
They're congregating with one another. And they're listening to their peers, and now they are free to do whatever they choose.
Right. We hope you enjoyed part 2, but listen, hold on. There's going to be a part 3. There is more to come, so you got to stay with us. You got to stay tuned for next week to part 3 of this event. We're going to take some more questions from our panel. We're also going to take some questions from the audience. Listen, go ahead and follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my webpage, perspectivestv.com. Also, if you'd like to be a part of our studio audience, always go to the Perspectives webpage and click the Be on the Show tab and sign up to be on the show. We're planning 2 wonderful shows on November 7th, one on autism and one on HIV/AIDS awareness. You've been watching Perspectives, where you're not only informed, but inspired. Have a blessed week.
Furnished 123 is a new way to shop and buy furniture. Did you know that for only $3.99 you can get a sofa, dining set, or bedroom set? Reclining sofas are only $5.99 and sectionals just $7.99.
Any pair of lamps, a 5x7 rug, or accessory pack for $99. A 3-piece table set for only $199. Queen mattress sets for only $2.99.
It's that simple. Furnished 123. Furniture buying as easy as 123.
Now open inside Mobley Furniture Outlet, Perry.